Welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're taking a really energetic, accessible dive into a fascinating new clinical trial that just dropped in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. It's a study exploring a totally new frontier in mental health treatment, specifically for folks suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. So get comfortable because we've got some highly anticipated data to unpack today. Okay, let's just jump right in with a massive, kind of provocative question. Can a psychedelic compound actually treat PTSD? Now, for decades, psychedelics were locked entirely away from clinical research, but the scientific community is finally taking a second look. They're asking if these compounds might just hold the key to some long-awaited relief for severe treatment-resistant trauma. Section 1. The PTSD treatment crisis. To really grasp why this research matters so much, we have to face the severe reality of where we currently stand. 5%. In any given year, PTSD affects roughly 5% of the population. We're talking about a severely debilitating condition, characterized by flashbacks and incredibly intrusive memories. This represents millions of people: military veterans, emergency responders, survivors of assault, people who are struggling daily with a massively reduced quality of life. Right now, the standard guidelines usually recommend daily antidepressant pills, like SSRIs. But here's the catch. Less than 30% of patients actually achieve remission with them. The main alternative is intensive, trauma-focused talk therapy. But as you can imagine, dropout rates there are notoriously high, simply because reliving that trauma over and over can be agonizingly painful. That's exactly why researchers are looking into a novel approach, a single-dose psychedelic session paired with psychological support. We desperately need a treatment that acts fast, is tolerable, and, doesn't require decades of daily pills. Section 2. Enter psilocybin. So let's pivot to the actual clinical intervention being tested here. The patients in this study weren't just given something grown in a backyard. No, they were given Comp 360. This is a highly controlled, synthesized pharmaceutical-grade psilocybin. It's designed specifically for rigorous clinical use, which allows the researchers to know exactly what dose the patient is getting, right down to the milligram. But it's really crucial to understand the confines of this research to keep our expectations in check. This was an early phase 2 study. That means it was small, involving just 22 adult participants. On top of that, it was an open-label study without a placebo, meaning both the researchers and the participants knew exactly what drug was being given. It's radical transparency. But it's also important to note because patient expectations can absolutely influence open-label results. Still, for an early safety trial like this, it's completely standard practice. Section 3. Inside the clinical trial. Now, this isn't some casual recreational experience. The protocol is incredibly structured and involves 3 distinct steps. Step 1 is preparation. Participants meet with a therapist multiple times over a few weeks just to build a solid foundation of trust. Step 2 is the dosing session itself. They receive a 25 milligram pill in a calming room with 2 therapists present at all times. They spend about 6 to 8 hours lying down, wearing eye shades, and listening to curated music to really let the experience unfold internally. And finally, step 3 is integration. Over the following weeks, participants process what they've felt, working to consolidate those insights into their everyday lives. Section 4. Safety first. Side effects. Before we even look at how well it worked, we have to talk about safety and the physical toll on the body. Every single participant experienced at least one side effect. The most common were headaches, nausea, crying, and fatigue. But, and this is the absolutely crucial takeaway here, over 90% of these side effects happened on the exact day the drug was administered, and they resolved completely by the very next day. So they were transient and highly manageable. We also need to talk about severe safety monitoring. During the 12-week trial, there were 2 cases of suicidal ideation reported. Both were in individuals who already had a prior history of such thoughts. They were monitored extremely closely, and those events resolved. Look, in a population dealing with severe psychiatric trauma, this level of clinical vigilance is absolutely paramount. Thankfully, there were 0 serious adverse events that caused anyone to withdraw from the study. Overall, the treatment was considered safe and well tolerated. Section 5. The results. Striking improvements. Okay, now for the highly anticipated data. By week 4 of the trial, an incredibly impressive 81.8% of the participants were classified as responders. What does that mean in clinical terms? It means they saw a meaningful drop of 15 points or more in their clinician-rated PTSD symptom score. Think about that. Over 80% of these patients experienced a profound, noticeably huge reduction in their suffering after just one single dosing session. And the data gets even more fascinating as time goes on. By week 12, so nearly 3 months after that single pill, 54.5% of the participants hadn't just responded, they achieved full clinical remission. More than half of the people in this study saw their symptoms drop so low that they literally no longer qualified for a diagnosis of PTSD. I actually want to read this direct quote from the researchers to really underscore what we're looking at here. Treatment was associated with a rapid and sustained reduction in PTSD symptoms and improved functioning and quality of life over a 12-week follow-up period. They didn't just feel better emotionally. Assessments showed their actual ability to function at work, socially, and within their families improved significantly. And here is where the science gets truly mind-bending. After the dosing session, participants filled out questionnaires about what they actually felt during the experience. The researchers were looking for a specific clinical state called oceanic boundlessness. Now, I know it sounds more like a poetry album than a medical term, right? But clinically, it describes a deep sense of connection, profound positive emotion, and what many people describe as a truly mystical experience. So why does oceanic boundlessness matter? Well, the researchers found a totally remarkable correlation. The stronger the feeling of oceanic boundlessness a patient reported on day 1, the greater the improvement in their PTSD symptoms by week 12. The intensity of that positive, deeply connected psychological state directly predicted how much the patient would heal. It strongly suggests that the subjective emotional journey is intimately tied to the actual biological rewiring of their trauma. Section 6. The future of PTSD care. So, what does this all mean for the millions of people out there waiting for a better solution? Well, the work isn't done yet. Science is a rigorous process. The necessary next step requires much larger, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trials to confirm these early findings. We really need to see if these improvements hold up when tested against a control group over a much longer period of time. But these early phase results, they offer a massive beacon of hope. Which brings us to our final thought. Are we on the verge of a mental health revolution? When a single dose of a medication, paired with careful psychological support, can put severe PTSD into remission for over half of the trial participants, we absolutely have to pay attention. I want to ask you to stay curious, stay informed, and continue to keep an open mind as we watch this incredible landscape of psychiatric care evolve. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I can't wait to dive into our next topic with you.